I am Zach Whalen. I'm an associate professor in the Department of English, Linguistics, and Communication, and I'm the director of the minor in digital studies. Well, this semester, something that I worked on was the console living room, or the umwconsole living room, along with Jim Groom, and this is part of that exhibit. This is a video game console from 1982, the GCE Vectrex system, and this exhibit was an attempt to situate media history in a context of the mid-1980s, and this is part of that context. This is a console that not a lot of people had. It wasn't quite as popular as the Nintendo. It was an innovative console for that time, though. It was a self-contained arcade at home experience. It sits on top of your table and you can play arcade games right there on the screen. It uses a vector display system, which is why they called it the Vectrex. Part of what we wanted to argue is that media technology has always converged in spaces like the home, and part of that convergence involves the ecosystem of the intermingling of the weird material specifics of each of these consoles, and this is a console that has a definite weird specific materiality to it. It sits on top of a table. It's actually meant to be portable. You can pick it up. It has a nice handle in the back and you can take it with you. And it's the kind of thing that really can only be experienced in person. You can't play it and get a true sense of it through an emulator or by reading about it or watching video of it. You really kind of have to see it and see how crisp the vector display is and hear the buzz of the cathode ray inside of it to really experience what it was like to have this in the 1980s. And it was part of, and it fit on the table alongside a lot of other things at the time. It was competing with and against and among the Atari, the Intellivision, the ColecoVision, Commodore 64 a little bit later, and a lot of other things that people just had altogether. And ultimately, some of those things survived that particular war, that particular generation. Some of the other things like the GCE Vectrex really didn't. They stopped making them in 1982. So it was ultimately not as successful as its competitors, but a really interesting piece of material media history. I do teach a course called Games and Culture in the English department, and it's about the cultural spaces that exist in and around video games. And what I wanted to do is take students back into a time when video games worked in a different way and meant something slightly different as part of, again, that media context in the living room. And so what we did is we built this living room, and it's stocked with a nice couch and some several TVs, several other game consoles. And on several occasions, I invited students to go up there and just experience the stuff and play with stuff, write blog entries and blog posts, and use Twitter and other ways to share that experience. So several of them made GIFs out of that experience to make interesting artifacts to try to interpret and immerse themselves in that environment, and it was a lot of fun.